This conference will now be recorded.
All right, wonderful. We're going to call the order. March 3rd, 10 a.m. Lake County TDCB meeting. If everyone will please stand for the invocation by the allegiance. Pledge allegiance first, and then we'll do invocation. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
One minute silence, please. All right, thank you. All right, has the meeting been properly noticed? Yes. Wonderful. Roll call, please, Shannon.
Jamie Ledgerwood.
Present.
Scott Fender.
Present.
Rebecca Matthews. Present. Cindy North. Present. Alicia Buckheimer.
Present.
Emilio Santiago.
Present.
And Cindy North is here. And we do have some board members online. Gustavo Enriquez. Kimberly
Present.
Present. And we do have a forum.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We do not have any chair announcements today. Do we have any updates to the agenda?
No updates.
No updates to the agenda. Do we have any public comment? What's the isn't there thing on this, was on the screen for what the public comment means? Isn't it about 3 minutes?
It's in the agenda. So at this point in the meeting, the board will hear citizens' questions, comments, concerns. If the issue raised today is not on the agenda, the board will not take the action at this meeting. Questions may be asked by staff or referred to appropriate staff for action. Further action is necessary. The item is posted to the future board agenda. The comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. This is one of two options for public comments.
Do you have any public comments here in the room or any on the phone? Now's your chance.
I would like to speak, or do you want to go first, Wanda?
You can go first.
No, you go first.
All right, should I stand or?
Just state your name.
You're okay.
Okay, all right, my name is Wanda.
Yes, this is Valerie Anderson.
Let Valerie go first.
Okay, Valerie.
Go ahead, Valerie.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am a client at New Vision for Independence. And I'm speaking not only for myself, but some of the other clients. While I may not know the specific information, I would like to compliment the drivers that you have that escort us and drive us, those of us who are blind. Many of them, most of them, all of them, for that matter, have been good human guys. They're polite and courteous, and that's a very positive thing, and we want that to continue. However, we are concerned that the wait time that we have after our appointments sometimes can be more than an hour. And I know that scheduling is a difficult thing depending on where our appointments are or where we're going in the county. But I did want to point out that in one particular case, a client was told that she could not be taken to a particular New Vision function because she passed other places that were similar in terms of the location. It was a library, for example. But the New Vision function was only being held at a particular library. So I don't know if that's a usual thing, or unusual thing, but I did want to bring it to your attention that, of course, we know in the county there are several libraries, several restaurants, and as participants for New Vision, sometimes we will have to go to different places that may not be as convenient. And I think it all has a lot to do with scheduling. So I thank you for this opportunity to present my case, and We hope that something can be done to make things a lot easier for those of us who, especially who are blind and visually impaired.
Thank you, Valerie.
Sure.
Okay, my name is Wanda McKenzie, and, a client with the transportation, but also with, New Vision. And, I also want to compliment the drivers. The drivers are very pleasant and very helpful. My issues, I think, maybe with dispatch. When I called to schedule, everything's fine, I don't have an issue. But a huge issue came up when I was scheduled to attend an event at Leesburg Library. It was a particular event, a particular speaker that was only speaking at the Leesburg Library. And the person, Karen, oh gosh, Karen, yes, called me, the day before and told me that I wasn't going to be picked up, it was going to be canceled. And I asked why. And she was saying because I passed too many other libraries, but the other libraries weren't having the function that I was trying to attend. And I'm arrived with TD. And it was, again, one particular function, only one particular day. And it was also revision, but there was a speaker. And, she was told that she couldn't pick me up because I passed too many libraries. Again, I explained several times that the other libraries weren't having a function, but I was trying to go to only that one and only that particular day. She was not very pleasant on the phone and, said she would call me back and then she never did. But, I wasn't picked up. And I know another client didn't receive the call like I did about not being picked up. She just wasn't picked up that morning. No cancellation or anything. So that's my particular, concern that I have. Because there's also something coming up at the library in Leesburg with genealogy. Again, that's the only library that has that. So I need to know, am I not allowed to go to that event, that function, that particular person that helps only at that library, only on that day, just because there are other libraries that I pass by. And I was taken to a library before, Halloween Hills, and I explained that to her, and because I was a clown, and she said that that was a mistake, that they shouldn't have taken me there. So I have a real concern about that.
And she knew that this was an actual function for New Vision?
Yes, I specifically told her that it was a function for revision. She prayed. But yes, I told her it was a revision function, and once again, she told me there were too many libraries that I passed by. And so she couldn't take me to Leesburg.
So this gets into those non-life sustaining trips that we've been discussing at every meeting, and the need to limit trip availability based on funding availability.
So
Were
my
we
question
trying for
again,
trips though?
I'm sorry,
Were we allowing so many per person? Or did that not start?
we've not done anything with that yet.
is, so how would a client know what trips would be allowed and which ones aren't? I mean, there doesn't seem to be any specific outline and rhyme or reason.
Transportation disadvantaged is designed for those that fall between the cracks, basically. It's for those that need life-sustaining services. And we have a limited amount of funding each year, each month, actually, that we have to stay within our budget. So there's only so much funding to go around, and we have to prioritize our trips.
Okay, so is that saying that I'm not approved on the same basis that I was initially? I've only been a client for a year. And when I was approved, I was told that I could go anywhere in the county, in Lake County. So I'm saying do something, because I'm not approved through ADA, but through TD, there's no bus available to me in my area.
Right, which is why you're qualified for TD services.
Right, and financially. Yes.
But yeah, it's all based on funding availability. And our need to prioritize dialysis trips over going to hear someone speak in public.
So do we need to, look at that, how many have been denied? I mean, I do think I'm super glad to hear the compliments of the drivers. That's great. So, let's not, kudos for that.
Absolutely.
But how many trips have been denied? And we'll get to the report that shows the funding, right? So funding per month, if we have, X amount of dollars and we denied 15 trips, but we were still overspent on all of the life-sustaining trips, well, then that kind of plays out, right? Like, nope, we were overspent that month, but we also had to deny 20 to public speaking events or special classes at different libraries.
Right.
But that's not kind of the case month to month, and we might want to consider, like, what does that look like for a writer? If they're approved to go anywhere in Lake County for life-sustaining, can they get one non-life-sustaining a quarter?
Right.
Can they get, at least they know, right? Like, I only get one, so I'm gonna go to the genealogy in Leesburg. That's one of the use for it.
As a board, we had approved a tracker sort of thing like that with so many and.
We just haven't started
Correct.
the per writer limit.
Correct. One of the things we want to talk about when we get further in the agenda is eligibility conditions, and maybe forming a committee to look at our application and to look at who qualifies for what, and to get really clear cut eligibility guidelines. But we'll get to that on the agenda.
I think it'd be beneficial, so at least writers know what their options are gonna be and where they can go and kind of plan ahead, like we all can, right? But they can't, so it'll be beneficial to the process, for sure.
Because when I was approved, I was never told that mine was only life sustaining. That's not what they said I was approved for. So now they're saying something different, but I've only been a client that 1 year, so it's not about, reapply. So how has something changed?
Well, it does say on the application itself that social recreational trips are life sustaining.
Right. That's the
So
issue.
that's where we need to get clarification from this body of who is eligible, who's not eligible, what trips are eligible, what trips are not eligible. And recognize that there is limited funding available. And we have to stay within our grant funding to be able to provide essential trips, the dialysis trips, the chemotherapy trip.
And you might have new writers, right, with new dialysis needs or new innovation needs. You don't know in this month, it's gonna come up May, so you always have to kind of leave some of that wiggle room, if you will,
Yeah.
for new patients.
And we do have a little wiggle room, but we're maxing out our grant, our transportation advantage grant, and we're pulling from other funding sources to be able to provide the level that we're providing today.
I think the other piece might be to get that genealogy class to you're a little closer to your library, right? Because if it would have said some of those things too, right? Like, okay, well, I can't go to that library, so can we get that speaker that's at Leesburg Library? Can we come over to this library? Because I can't go to that library. So not that speaker would do that, but I think that's another avenue that,
Right.
listen, these are great opportunities. How can we get these to other libraries? Because we have people who want to go, then, but they can't get to Leesburg.
Right. So New Vision serves the entire county. So perhaps they can schedule their events different places in the county.
The one event that two people could not get to, at least two, probably there were more, at least for library, is that something that will, be given at other libraries, or could it be like recorded or televised, or, I don't know.
That particular activity was part of community integration efforts where visually impaired people attend the same kind of event as sighted people. It's part of their training program, and that particular event was an Abe Lincoln. It was Abe Lincoln talking to you about the Emancipation Proclamation. You don't get that anywhere. But we are moving, and we'll be having events at our office probably more frequently. But the whole point is for folks to get out and about. But when you serve the entire county, you can't always have them in one location. Howie in the Hills was a compromise for North and South. And then Wanda's told that was a mistake. So even then, it seems like we can't win. But what I'm hearing is that we need to better define what the trips mean and eligibility and all that, and also we need to better communicate what's available.
Absolutely.
And having, when rules do change, that they are put out in all medias, braille, electronic, because a lot of times people with print disabilities do not get the same information that other disability groups receive.
Yes, and absolutely.
I think this so much wasn't a rule change as it was a funding, right? So, but it's the same thing, reminding riders that we are, funding's limited. We've been very transparent. We've spent more money this year on life-saving trips, so we have less money on non-life-saving trips. That might impact your request to go to a non-life-saving trip. Because it wasn't a rule change as much as a funding.
Over the years, because there are the 5 tiers of service levels that have been cut as necessary based on funding. But it sounds like it needs to be clear that these trips are not available, or we start implementing what I thought was going to be effective October 1 was the 12 trips per person per month. We discussed that quite a bit.
Yeah, it was a lot.
But that's coming up on the agenda.
So, yeah, so now my question too is, one, we kind of discussed it, hashed it out, approved it, like when is that expectation? Would that start? But again, it's, with funding, we can do 12, right? Funding availability, we can do that. If funding is still short, it doesn't matter if we did 6, because funding doesn't allow 6. Any other, public comment?
Me, myself, I'm Christy Delmonco. And, I've heard the comments from the other citizens, and I do want to say that the drivers are polite. However, I came to this board back in December and talked about assisting the drivers getting them trained to deal with individuals with all different disabilities. And I don't know who that is here, but a gentleman by the name of Bill.
That's me.
Okay. You had said you were going to reach out to me, so that we could discuss and possibly try to get this started, and that was never done. So I would still love to work with you, and we'd all love to work with you to get the drivers the accurate training that they need to interact with individuals with being, especially blind, visually impaired, but in all disabilities.
Absolutely. Our drivers go through a standardized training program. They do receive passenger sensitivity and what's the other for the rest? Passenger safety and sensitivity training.
Okay, well, that's not happening, and I appreciate that answer, but, even with the new drivers that are coming on, the training and interacting with people that are blind, especially in dealing with service animals, or even, I had to train a new driver how to do clean and guide, which, I don't mind doing, but they should have had that knowledge. Or they'll ask questions that maybe they should get training on before they're put out with blind and vision impaired individuals.
We go through extensive training. Some drivers, some folks get it, some folks don't.
Okay.
They're human.
Yeah.
We do standardized training. We have monthly safety and security meetings. There's only so much training we can give. We go through drivers, couple a month. So to continuously train them would be very difficult. At that level, at the one-on-one level. But we do, our best with what we have to work with.
Okay,
Um,
well, that's, hopefully that will improve, in the future. I do want to say that transportation is the number one, vehicle to independence, for individuals being independent and also employment.
I absolutely agree. And actually, New Vision's new facility is right on the bus line. I just walk off.
And
So, so that would be a great opportunity for New Vision to do some travel training and to teach folks how to use Fixed Route, enabling individuals to travel from South County to North County using the Fixed Route bus service.
But if you don't have.
Wait, I'm gonna put a little pushback on that, sir. I live in the area where there are no buses. I would have to walk 3 miles to get to Megacin and, Morrison Megacin, and there's not even a bus there. Yes, where people do live in areas where there are buses, that, yes, we always want to, train people to be independent.
Absolutely.
But you have areas here in the three, well, especially in Lake County, where that is not possible. And if you are limiting individuals to having vehicles to independence, then that's an issue as well.
True statement.
On time, I kept a log from, from your last board meeting until today. I'm very blessed to have an employer who, understands the issues with transportation. It's probably except for maybe a month, my drop-off time is 8 o'clock. I'm picked up at 6:45 from my home. It takes about, and depending on traffic, it takes about an hour to get from my home to New Vision. 2 months straight, I never got to work on time. There was a time, let me finish there. There was a time where I was, there's been several times where I've been late, where my driver is waiting for me, and I have appointments out in the community on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, where me being on time is essential to my clients getting the services they need in a good manner. I've had to rearrange my schedule, or I have not been able to make certain appointments on time. And again, transportation is a vehicle towards independence and employment. And I really hope that this board and all of us involved, work on all the things to make this transportation service, a great thing that people are wanting to champion.
Agreed.
Can I say one thing? Ms. Delmonte, whenever you made express your complaint, I think it was back in December, we communicated then that we need to move your pickup time to earlier in the morning. And you informed me that you did not want that to happen.
But it did happen. We did move it back to 6:45.
Yeah, but you suggested 6:30 would probably be more beneficial if you did, and you told me you did not want to do that. That 15 minutes would make a huge difference in the flow of traffic.
Okay, well, we did move it back after our discussion. I did talk to dispatch and it was moved back to it's anywhere from, my pickup time is anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30. The driver usually gets to my home probably around 6:45, 7 o'clock at times. So,
You got some of the distance that you're traveling.
I,
You need to plan more time.
there is plenty of time. 45 to,
It's a multi.
Yeah, there's stops in between.
I'm fully aware of that. I'm just saying that from the scheduling, and I'm not the only one bringing up this issue. I'm just the one vocalizing it today to you. There's from scheduling to everything, just the on time getting passengers, and I know that it is a shared ride service. I'm not naive to think that I have a limo picking up every day. But it is something that needs to improve, and I hope that this body works so that we can make that better.
Agreed.
And I know I've used up my 3 minutes, but going back to time, I actually have to give them the incorrect time. I have to tell them the earlier time. If I tell them the correct time, I'm always going to do it. The doctor's offices, the vision appointments. So I shouldn't have to tell them the incorrect time to get to a place on time.
And this is Cindy, I'd like to speak to. Even just this morning, my pickup time was between 7:45 and 8:45. No, 8:45 to 9:45, to be here by 10. I didn't get picked up until like 10 minutes till 10. And I believe, if you check, the only reason I got picked up and was here skating in right on time was because I called and said where I was going and what time can I expect the driver. I was originally told at 8:30 that it would be between 15 and 20 minutes. Well, she showed up right after that. But as has been stated, I am consistently late to work every day.
If you need to adjust your time.
I have adjusted my time. I have, several times. My pickup time is 7:15 to be at work by 8:30. It's an hour and 15 minutes to go 30 minutes from my house. And I understand the pickups along the way. I totally get that. But to be late every single day, I don't know how many people could maintain employment with a regular employer. It's very difficult. The afternoons, I understand it's gonna take me 2 hours to get home, 2.5 hours. And I'm okay with that, but I need to be at work on time. And moving it back
Can you say your times again?
this morning,
Normally.
7:15
Do you have to work by when?
by 8:30.
Okay, what time should she, request?
I don't know how far she's traveling. I don't know what time she's traveling.
You live in Freeland Park, correct?
That's correct.
And you're going to Mount Dora.
Yes.
Okay,
So that's a 45-minute drive for
I
Central.
timed it, it's 30 minutes on the bus.
during rush hour traffic. I know, I live in Maysburg, off of City Hollow, and I work in Freeland Park, just past 25 or Dixie,
Usually,
and it takes me to drive in 30 minutes. And that's like
okay, well, I'm just telling you,
8 miles.
I have timed it myself. I have a talking watch, and we make it in 30 minutes, if it's just me on the bus.
And it depends, it could go, it'd certainly be longer than that. That seems like a driver that went faster than perhaps they should.
And we have that too. I had one honk. Drove up Friday to pick me up for an appointment, honked her horn, did not get off the bus.
Right.
And when I asked, I was like, did you really just honk for me? Oh, I do that for all the clients so they know I'm here.
I did that, it was this past Friday.
This past Friday.
Okay, thank you.
Although I did come from our office this morning to here, and it took me 20 minutes this morning. So it's awesome.
When you guys kind of look into, a complaint or a concern, or like, I tracked it for a month and I was late, I was later every time. Do you also look at like what's going on during that trip? Like maybe, since it's shared, maybe she would have been fine on time if two people weren't late. Do you kind of look at that piece that might create that delay? Because you might just say 45 minutes, what you need. Well, that's great if it's just her on the bus, but as soon as you get other riders in the bus, now it's not 45 minutes, it's longer than that. to really identify, so maybe the problem's not with the first person being picked up, the challenge is maybe with person 2 or 3. I don't know that answer, but does your system allow you to kind of look at that leg
Yeah, absolutely.
and figure out why is it taking an hour when we think it should take 45 minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. We have GPS tracking on vehicles, so we're able to see where the delays are. And we absolutely do that level of research.
And it could be the accident, right? So they're just staying in traffic like everybody else around them too. So the GPS kind of shows you they were static here for 20 minutes versus
Right.
wheels were running the whole time they were going.
Yeah, we can see the speed of the vehicle and, if a vehicle is delayed, the speed drops down tremendously, whereas, if traffic's flowing as normal, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you can see the difference in the speeds of the vehicles, and kind of understand why, where the delays were or why they were.
And ultimately, more funding is more drivers, more funding is more buses, right? More
Yes.
funding is more legs.
Absolutely.
So without that, we're just, like you said, we just kind of have what we have.
Right, we
You
have to
can't,
work within boundaries.
And then I have one last thing, and I'll stop. The human dignity factor. I'm just wondering, what is the policy when there's an emergency that happens on the bus? When a client is sick or they need to pull over, my dog recently had an accident on the bus. I didn't know he was sick when I got on the bus. And I sent an email and I got the answer, and the answer was, maybe you should consider putting a diaper on your dog. I've been riding this bus for 5 years with my dog. Last month, 5 years. He's never had an accident, ever. He's always clean, he's well behaved, and I ensure that he's safe and I'm safe.
Yes, ma'am.
I was told there was no place for the driver to pull over. The next day, I was on the bus. I have peripheral vision. After I got that email, I counted 11 parking lots with grass right up until the point where we pulled off on the side of the road to relieve my dog. And after that, I was handed paper towels, which I didn't mind, and I cleaned it up myself. I mean, I did the best I could. And then I was told by the driver that because of what I did, the rest of the trips were going to be late for the rest of the day. I felt embarrassed and humiliated because all of this is happening over the radio. And Amy, I sent you, I believe you're the one I sent the email to.
Yes.
So 11, I counted 11 parking lots with grass. So I just think that those are, especially those things we can do better. If someone is sick and needs to go to the bathroom, a person, and they're told no, that happened just last week to me.
So you know you're traveling, you should go to the bathroom before the bus arrives.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I mean, it's
Me too.
it's common sense.
Wait,
On
when
the
you're
bus
sick.
for over 2.5 hours. Our return trips home are over 2.5 hours.
And I was sick.
What?
I never asked, I'm an adult. I teach people. And for you,
I have to say my bus, there has been, not me, but there has been clients on my bus that has peed themselves on our bus twice in the past month. It was all over the radio and everything else, you know what I'm saying? It's the long trip that goes from Mount Dora, all the way, which bus route I'm on. We are legitimately on that bus for 2.5 hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays because of our regular people that are there, which I don't mind doing. And yes, I prepare. I've never had to stop to use the restroom or anything. I've never had the accident, but that's not to say that it would never happen. That is.
People get sick, people have medical issues.
Yeah. That I do ask if it's possible, if having more than one long haul route driver is even a possibility, because that is consistently too long, I believe, with the distance that I'm traveling. So I am so sorry. My name is Rebecca and I really shouldn't have butt in with,
Oh, you're fine.
but that broke my heart to hear how she was treated about her dog having an accident on the bus. That's totally unacceptable.
I understand,
So I'm
and,
sorry.
but
Rebecca.
that's exactly some of the things that we can't plan for, in our scheduling.
And you-
So literally,
Right.
everyone after that
We're just asking for a
emergency
little,
stop,
we're just
is right.
asking for a little more dignity and a little bit more respect, and we're all adults, and I know that there are individuals who do not have the mental capacity and do have accidents, but to broadcast it all over the radio and then to say, hey, you can't go to the bathroom, there's gotta be some code that you can have the driver say like, whatever, so that if somebody does have to go to the restroom, or if the dog has to go to the restroom, it doesn't have to be an act of Congress, or we don't have to get embarrassed.
What, if someone were to vomit on the bus, what would happen?
the bus would be pulled out of service, making everyone after that late.
But for the people that are on the bus,
Just trying to figure out so would the bus pull over, would it be recalled with everybody on it?
It would depend on, on a case by case
Driver would
basis.
contact dispatch would tell them what they needed to do.
I actually, if you don't mind me, on that experience of ours, it was handled very well. I'd like to say that, once it happened, the bus pulled over to the nearest thing, he radioed it in. They said that, your, maintenance would bring a bus out to us at our location. Another driver said, hey, I just dropped off my last person. I'm 5 minutes away from you. Can I come bring my bus, give it to the guy with his passengers, and then I'll take the bus, back to things. It
That's a great
was
deal.
wonderful,
That's how it should work.
wonderful. So, but those things do happen. There's got to be, especially on the long, if you've got your clients on a bus for over 2 hours, even if it's because of traffic or something, there's got to be safe places where clients can stop and use the restrooms, so that that's not a more common thing.
Well, going back to the vomiting,
Mhm.
because that's one of those that, well, I can't vomit before I get on the bus. Well, I probably can't, but, like the, taking out all the possibilities when it comes to like urinating, vomiting. That's one of those, oh, that's happening right now, and I can't do anything about it. So if that happens, they know where to pull off, or that the dispatch would tell them where safe places to pull off?
They would pull off into a safe parking area, I would hope,
Yes.
and radio into dispatch for direction.
And is it also part of the policy that if they're warned that it's going to happen? Like, if you can tell you're about to vomit, can I tell, the driver that if it's we should pull over so I don't do this all over people and all over the bus?
Yeah.
That's part of it
That's
too?
appropriate, yes.
I experienced that one time. So funny you should bring that up. Told him I was gonna be sick, he pulled over so quick. I was so grateful. So I'm just asking for some dignity, that's all.
Understand.
and I was gonna say, hearing the experiences, what I was gonna say is we can do better. I don't know the detail, but it sounds like we can do better. And and Rebecca, your example is doing better.
Yes.
See, that is a great example of how we can do better. So, I think if someone's like, listen, if the policy is I'm about to throw up, pull over, and you do, or I say I'm about to pee myself, then you should pull over. It should be the same policy. It's the same human, either whether I'm throwing it up or I'm urinating or defecating, it is the same bodily fluids with the same, health risks. So I think that should be applied to both, with everybody when they can, they plan ahead for a 2-hour trip. But yeah.
And there are plans with, developmental disabilities where that could be an issue, but they don't even know.
They don't know, yeah, absolutely. But if you have somebody who does know, then, I think it's a human dignity conversation, like, I think maybe a special code, like, I don't know, a bus 794, code 4, and code 4 is,
Yeah.
just make a code. So it's not like, or, you know, I'm not
Where
sure.
she got Michael has to go to the bathroom.
You know, some of those, you know, some code words, that's kind of all part of it. So, but I just want to thank everybody for speaking up. I'll tell you that sometimes it's not, you know, you were embarrassed, and now you're saying it in a public meeting that's recorded, for many more people to hear that may not have been on the radio that day. And so thank you for having the courage, the commitment, the desire, the bravery to kind of say, listen, this is me, this is my life, this is who I am. You guys don't have to ride the bus like we do. This is so important to us.
Thank you for
And,
saying that.
Yes, and it is important to us as members. We can't always have the funding to make the changes, but I don't sit here and think, well, we just need more buses. I'm right there with you. I see you, I hear you, and I feel you. So thank you for saying what you did.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, any more?
Anyone else want to?
Oh, no, yeah. Any more public comment on the minutes that we all? Oh, you're the vice chair,
I would like to add one thing, if you wouldn't mind. I'm Rebecca, and I do use it, the transportation, and I'm very appreciative, extremely appreciative. However, I am the one who moved my time forward, like you tell everybody to do, because that is the solution to the problem. I now get to work every single day between 8 and 8:15, every single day, 45 minutes to an hour early, every single day. So yes, I took your advice. I have not been late since I moved my thing forward. However, and it's been cold, it's been real cold, it's been real rainy. I am at my location 45 minutes to 1 hour early every single day. So is that really the solution to the problem? I'm asking. If me not wanting to be late because the anxiety just fills me. So I did what I had to do so that I was never late,
And now you're early.
and now I am extremely early, I think,
What's your pickup time?
at 7:15
Where do you live
in Mineola,
in? You know, going to,
Mount Dora.
it's the long haul.
Yes, it is.
And it depends upon the traffic flow, because flow on 27, whenever you get up towards Leesburg, it's really horrific.
Mhm.
And so it depends upon, I know with my flow of my work coming from 441 down, it depends upon the time of day when they leave, because it's heavier at one time, and it's not as heavy at another time. And that could be just 15 minutes. So,
Well, my question is, I know that we had at the last meeting discussed new scheduling software.
yes.
Is that going to focus more on our actual drop-off time, more so than our pickup time? You know what I'm saying, is with the new software, what time we are getting dropped off be more important or a larger factor than what our pickup time is? Or is pretty much scheduling gonna stay the same with this new software?
We're hoping it's different. We are so hoping. The new software, well, all the software that are out there allow you to pick pickup time or drop off time. If we were using our software sucks. Sorry, I can't say it nicely. If we were using our software the way it's supposed to be used, things would be a little bit different. It really would. And I really think the new software is going to help.
Okay, why is your current software not being used the way it's supposed to be used?
It was we've been using it since 2008. It's, software usually has a useful life of 5 to 10 years. So we're like way past
Okay.
Useful life. But the way it was set up, it doesn't work the way it was set up. So we're hoping, like, bringing in new software, setting it up right from the start, will help efficiencies, and if we use the software the way it's supposed to be used.
How do we ensure that happens? I mean, is that pretty much in you guys' control, or is it once you set it up and that whoever's dispatching or whoever's scheduling starts doing it not properly? I mean, do you have things in place to make sure?
So that's what we're actually gonna have, the software vendor on site for 2 weeks, doing training in person, to teach us how to use the software correctly.
When is that happening? Because I keep looking forward to this month and trying to hang in there, but
I feel yeah. We received approval to purchase the software. Our attorneys are talking to their attorneys. So, we expect to have it in place no later than June 30th, or it has to be in place no later than June 30th, because it's a grant funded purchase.
Can I just throw something in here? I do public education for the schools, transportation, and I have about 250 routes, and each route runs 3 tiers. And I just want to say, just so you understand, the easiest routes to route are those that are tight and compact, and I can do 30 stops in a 30-minute thing. What happens with these types of things, and I'm just an observer here, but when you're going from Mineola to Mount Dora, right, you can have one stop there, and it's gonna skew it by 30 minutes, because you're gonna go 15 minutes out here to get this person, and then 15 minutes back. So there is no way to realistically tighten it up into a window. I mean, unless you're gonna just have a fixed route, and you're gonna run it the same way every day, whether that person's riding or not, but I'm still gonna go here, so that everybody can get used to a schedule. So I'm just throwing it out there. What they do with long distances, with small numbers of people, you can have one person or 2 people, and you've skewed that route by 30, 40, 45 minutes. So
but don't your schedules, they look through before the next morning to make sure of anybody that had called out, or someone that's not on that route, or anybody who is close to that route that needs to be added? Isn't that stuff scheduled before your driver gets there in the morning and does their thing?
Yeah.
So should those types of things be factored in the day before the morning?
School bus, fixed route transportation, easy peasy. Not to say.
I can see, like, when I deal with my ESE buses, they're the ones, right? Because they're the ones, I have 8 kids, but I'm going a large area. And people say, why don't you just, we add 1 student, why don't we just change it by tomorrow? Well, you can't, because you gotta notify 8 groups of people. So you gotta get the proper notification. And I don't know, like, it's probably a manpower issue, I would assume, like, who's sitting there manning the phones to call everybody on the schedule to tell them that it's gonna be changed tomorrow? And the next day, you gotta call them and say it's gonna be changed again. Or the next day, you gotta call them and say it's gonna be changed again.
Our schedules are literally, different every day. So,
It's one with the schools. I have a daughter on the ESC route. We get auto calls.
The new software will kind of incorporate notifications, text notifications, auto calls.
Yeah.
Those when it changes, so they be notified more often. I'm sure that 2008 software doesn't do that.
yeah.
And one final, since we're talking about the time, another thing that I've run across is when I schedule from where I live, which is South Claremont, Fort Collins to Mount Dora, and they've given me a time that I know isn't going to work. And then they say, oh, well, they said, it says this is a 15-minute ride. No, that's not a 15-minute ride.
We left off an hour 15.
Yeah, thank you. So only because I've said that, then they've changed the time. Other than that, again, every time I go somewhere, I would wind up being late. I don't know why it's coming up that that's a 15-minute ride for me, but it's not.
Something's geocoded incorrectly.
Your current software, it says from my house to my job is 10 minutes. And I said, I've asked dispatch to please change that with, that thing, but it is in software saying that it's 10 minutes from my house to my job.
In 2008, it was 10 minutes.
So there is something in the software that is
Yeah.
contributing.
So I'm gonna say one more thing, and we're gonna move on, because we got at least one action item or minutes to approve the changes, which, when the vendor, so when you start talking to the vendor and they're on site, maybe have that conversation of, listen, we have a lot of concerns around our scheduling, around pickup versus drop off, and maybe kind of when that implementation happens, that they can make sure they implement it. Not only the best way they would advise, but there might be some tweaks that they do to focus on pickup and drop offs, that if you didn't mention that, they would just give you like the standard install. But different reporting kind of things that kind of help us drive it later once it's installed.
Yes,
Around pickup and drop off.
I know other softwares that I've used at other transit agencies, literally have so much more capability than our software currently does. And allows you to like indicate there's a lake there. So you can't go across the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go around.
Yeah, or the villages, when you can't, they say you can go through them, but you can't, because you don't do it. Same thing. Like, all right, so we're gonna move on. Thank you so much for all the public comment. You know, it's hard from time. Anybody on the phone that wanted to, speak to public comment, maybe something has not yet been, spoken to? All right, wonderful. All right, moving on, we're gonna go to the consent items. We do have one change to the minutes. Action items, sorry. Action items. First. All right,
It's a big change.
Oh, okay, action items. I'll take out the minutes. It's in the minutes is what I was thinking now. Action items, selection of Lake County TDCB vice chair. Well, I'm in the minutes. Hold on. We need to approve. Did we approve the minutes, Mike? Do you want some help out, Wanda?
No.
I'm in the minutes right now, which is why I'm confused. Let me get back to the agenda.
Number 3, action item A.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, number 3, action item A. Approval of December 2nd quarterly meeting minutes. There has been a change noticed regarding the final vice chair that was approved. In the minutes, it says Chantel Buck, and she refuses to take the gavel. It was meant to be me. So with that change, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll move. I will not second.
We have Chantel move. Do you have a second? Wonderful. Thank you, Scott. All in favor, please say by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like? With none, the motion carries. The minutes are approved. Now moving on to discussion items. Mike.
All right, first item is our required to report the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage Ombudsman report. This is like a complaint hotline in Tallahassee. And for Lake County, they received no calls this quarter.
Wonderful. And B, follow up?
Follow up, I'm gonna let Kelsey Peterson help me on this one. All right, Kelsey. So this is one of our recurring discussion items, follow-up items. This is where we spend a lot of our time. On the screen are eligibility application updates, consideration of adding a Ocala destination service area, accessibility updates to no-show door hangers, operator training on customers with disability, implementing a cap on life-sustaining trips, and some proposed updates in Mary Bennett. So,
Thanks, Michael.
So I'll turn it over to Kelsey at this point.
Awesome. Thank you. So for these follow-up items, I know we covered a few of them in the conversations that we just had. I am going to talk about the proposed updates to the Mary Bennett role on the next slides, but first I wanted to let Bill and Amy talk through some of these other items.
The eligibility application has been completed with the updates that the board in September suggested that we wanted. There's so much of it marked up that we didn't want to put it on the screen. I'm happy to send it to you electronically so that you can see what the markup is. Also, we were looking at different various agencies in the state of Florida and their eligibility application and their processes. And we discovered we love Brevard County. It's called that. Their application process is wonderful. And we'll eventually try to mimic their application process. Bill knows this can be submitted electronically. As you complete it, you can submit it electronically through there and submit your paperwork and documentation at the same time electronically too. We're working with IT to get this to take place. It's going to take a little time, but we're working towards improving the system.
And is it an off-the-shelf, system? Was it like a bit, did they build it
So
custom or?
we've got, they built this in-house, if you will. The new software, it figures like the software, the new software, has some type of form capability, in it. And I've not seen it to know if we can do this yet, but we have been talking with our communications and IT staff, who have said that they can do this. Something very similar.
And then feed it to this.
The board here has been advocating for some type of online application, and this is laid out beautifully. It's very similar to our current application, a lot of the same questions, some automation.
Mike, can you click in the applicant's signature, just see what happens?
You can, if you click and
It may not
hold,
let it.
there you go. So.
That clear. It's beautiful.
I have a middle name.
Now,
So-
Sorry, can you type your signature or do you have to use a stylus or something to sign it?
You can do it either way,
Okay.
I believe. But yeah, the TV commission recently, I think it was 2 years ago, allowed electronic signatures,
Just to.
whereas before it had to be a wet signature.
Yeah.
But you can drag and drop documents and it's beautiful. I'm excited. So we need to get the new software in and see what it's capable of. If it can do this, great. If it can't, then we'll get our IT folks to mirror this. But it's beautiful form. It's easy to read. It's adjustable. Like I think if you hold your control key down and roll your mouse forward, you can enlarge the text.
Have you seen it on a phone or tablet? Is it auto size or phones or tablets?
Yes.
And what about JAWS and Zoom text? Availability.
We would make sure that it was capable.
And that could be something too, like those of you, I mean, it's, you could share the, email address or the website with them and you could use your current software right now. Just to say you're trying to fill this out for Brevard, just don't submit it, but you can see if your current, platforms you use would incorporate on this one. So that way they can give the feedback to you, like, works perfect on Brevard, so let's make sure Lake County works the same way with those other platforms.
Absolutely. Chantal, would you, can you provide insight there? It's 321transit.com/forms/ADA dash FORM form.
One more time.
So it's 321transit.com/forms/ADA dash form FORM.
It's forward slash forms/ADA. Hyphen form /.
So, but essentially 321transit.com and there's a link on the upper left corner that says special services and then you can drop down to ADA Air Transit application.
You said it's for Brevard County?
You Google Space Coast Area Transit.
Okay.
So that's in the works.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, Amy and I both, when we saw this, was just blown away by it.
I've never heard of it. It's called beautiful.
I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to stuff like that.
Thank you, Alicia.
You're welcome. Thank you, Rennie.
Thank you.
Oh, I love the whole route delays and detours.
Mhm.
No, I look at that up there at the top tip of the page there.
Yeah, we actually have something similar on our website. but it's up to us to update it. So, it is what it is.
Okay. On down to consideration adding a college destination to service area.
So we looked at, do you want to do this? We looked at our trips to Gainesville and we don't do a lot.
Not very much.
So we are very hesitant to add Ocala. Only because it's taking resources out of the service area and we need those resources to provide service in the county.
Do you remember who was asking for Ocala and for what purposes?
I believe it was just something that was brought up in this meeting.
Her name is Jean Delapcho.
Yeah. And she's the one that, basically the only person that we have at this moment has been asking for it.
A specific doctor. Specific doctor, because she doesn't have one of the sort in Lake County. Or for whatever reason, chooses not to put one in Lake County.
There was not enough people needing that to bring forward with that, right?
Oh, you guys.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just staring at the screen. So accessibility updates on the no-show door hanger. I think I mentioned that a previous transit agency I worked for, we had bright orange no-show door hangers. We're working with our communications group to have that recreated here. So just something that stands out. Jill, our director, had mentioned earlier that property she previously worked at actually used the sticky note stuff like UPS does, or just peel off the back and stick it in the door. So we're kind of looking at that too, but we're really looking more at the bright orange door hanger.
What are you going to do for individuals who are blind and can't see those stickers? Or read them?
How orange does it have to be for you, Chrissy?
Oh, there is no color orange that I can see.
Does the new software possibly have like, she got me all excited about the software, like saying magic stuff, but does it have any sort of way of calling out? Like scheduling for, hey, this person didn't show up, send them an auto call.
Really, that's the driver calling the dispatcher saying, you know, I've been at the residence for 15 minutes, we're not answering the door, can you please call? And
Yeah.
it's more of a manual process.
But that's what, what would be on the stickers or the door handle thing, saying, you were here, you weren't.
Yeah, basically.
For the amount of time that they were there.
And that's the way, that's the whole, this is your first no-show, like for the strikes that theoretically count against you?
Theoretically, yeah, we don't enforce our no-show policy right now. You don't have a lot of no-shows. I think we're like 4.5%, which is really low compared to other places I've been. I had no idea where I was going with that conversation.
Can it be embossed?
It can, it's expensive.
Well, if you were trying to debate between whether or not you do a door hanger or a sticker, definitely door hanger's better. Since there's the tactile capability and you could use apps to assist with reading it. Versus a sticker, you may have absolutely no idea that the sticker is anywhere on your door.
So. Or cans of bright orange.
But it's not a huge, issue anyway.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a lot of those being hung.
So, I'm sorry, my brain's like in 6 directions. So, the other properties I've been at, the doors hanger basically says, we were here, you weren't. But it also has the no-show policy on it.
Okay.
So just so people are aware of the policy and they can't say they didn't know.
Well, some certainly could say that they still didn't know, even if you put it bright orange.
Sure.
Be careful, she's got like knitting needles behind you.
No,
The text, I would encourage you, the minimum for large print, I do quote unquote, when I say that, is 14 point, but if you could go bigger than that.
20 is nice, pleasant.
And that's hard for a door hanger. So,
So we
Another
have that much space to work with.
so you could, if you have all of this information on a website and you could do like a static QR code to that website, so that if, regardless of who it is, someone, they're trying to magnify it, they may use their phone, or if they can't see it at all, they may use their phone, and the QR code will help. Their phone will grab that.
I like that.
So QR codes, is that a good option?
It's pretty common, because if you pull it up, Chris, I'll speak to the low vision side, and then you can, it's common for folks with low vision, in my experience, to open up the camera first as a quick and dirty magnification option. And if you do that, then it will, you have your camera open on a QR code, it'll pop up the website it's trying to take you to. So it notifies you that there's something more there.
Yeah.
And is it something similar, Christy? How would you be able to access a QR code?
well, I can do it multiple ways, but I'm thinking about my clients who don't do technology.
Sure.
But I could use my iPhone, my Seeing AI, I could use my Meta AI glasses, I could ask somebody, but my thought is, if we've got this new chance to gain some software, well, that's a thought and a question. So, say a text message, you no-show. But why are we not implementing our no-show policy? Is it my biggest question?
It's resources really.
There aren't enough of you?
There are enough of us, and
Not enough hours in a day, not enough days.
folks
Flying by.
challenge, folks tend to challenge the no-shows, and then we have to go back and research it, and yeah, GPS says we were there.
True, but dispatchers don't always communicate with the drivers. I've experienced that myself
I've
several
heard that
Yes.
myself.
just last week, actually.
I've actually got a radio on my desk and I've frequently listened to it, and I've actually literally called dispatch and saying, what are you thinking?
Can we address that too, some of the dispatch? Some of them coming across that we get to sit on the bus and hear every single day, twice a day. Some of those are very disrespectful to their drivers. Extremely inappropriate stuff is going on. So please your dispatch really needs to be much nicer and pleasant, because we're all hearing when they're sniffing and
Yes,
bitching at their drivers.
You don't realize that.
It's bad.
surely they do.
We have a new general manager of our contractor who used to work for Lake County Transit, in my role, I think. Actually. So he knows what's expected, and he's changing things with his staff, moving some people around, literally just interacting with them on more of a personal level. And Olal's got some really good motivational things that he did up in Ocala that he's putting in place, and we're kind of excited that he's here, and he has that, he understands what Lake County Transit expects of the contractor. So he's moving into shape.
It's a very stressful job.
Yes.
And I'd probably be snipping at people too, right? That's one of many reasons why I'm not accepting that.
How do you say his name? Ola?
Oh,
Oh,
you can say his last name, I can't.
Alkin,
Say again?
Alkin.
Okay.
And he's on.
Oh, okay.
What's that? Ola?
Ola. We're talking about,
Yeah, I heard you. Good morning, everybody.
welcome aboard.
So, so the next thing after is operator training on customers with disabilities. Talked about that a little bit earlier. Essentially, we have a standardized training that our operators go through, and we can certainly do refresher training. They have monthly safety meetings that a lot of times during those meetings, well, that's the purpose of the meetings is to do refresher training and to talk about individual circumstances. I know a couple of months ago they had a winter driving theme, if you will.
Florida? For all the snow we have?
Yeah.
Well, actually, different lots of Florida.
But, snowbirds coming down, increased traffic on the roads, what to watch out for. But they do like a monthly theme, and do refresher training on that theme.
What's the standard training, you mean, a standardized training? Is it I purchased it from somewhere? Or-
It's proprietary to RecDev, the contractor.
Okay.
There's quite a few transit management companies like RecDev who have their own training specific for fixed route and for paratransit.
I just wanted to know, like, if you already have those monthly morning meetings where your drivers are there and it's already in place, how difficult would it be that, you've got Christy who's volunteering to be there? Can 1 month be about vision awareness and have Christy?
Should I literally teach people how to walk around
Yes.
blind people?
Yes. If you've already got the meeting and everything set in place, just allowing her to come and speak on the visually impaired. Because at the beginning, there was a lot of drivers that want to grab my arm or grab my hand. That is the worst thing that anybody can do. And your drivers were doing it. Yeah, so.
Is that a question with Ola?
Yeah, and now, I'll talk about it.
And it's easy, I mean, I don't care who it is, as long as the drivers get the training, but I've said it before and I'll say it here again, I would be happy to do it off book or schedule it to where Chantel allows me to go. But, basic human guide techniques.
Yes.
How to interact with a person who maybe not use a cane, but has a visual impairment. How to interact with dog guides. Just some really basic stuff that these drivers need.
So I'll get with the law and we'll see about bringing it in.
Sorry, my dog's annoying.
You guys be
Thank
really
you.
hurry too, I heard over us.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the whole purpose of those Saturday meetings is to do the refresher training so everyone sees the same thing and hears the same message. Capital life sustaining trips. Capital life sustaining trips. They're doing for 9 months.
Yeah.
We're still looking at that.
It's, yeah, they're looking at they're going to work with, lots of my training, life sustaining. They're she's still looking at data and capturing data for that.
Joe, our director.
Yeah.
Because even I did go to your website and print off the handbook, you know, and I've read and read and read, and there really isn't any clarification in there enough to help me on what tiers or, you know, different categories that trips would be under. It's not
The
there.
CTD was life sustaining as recreational, but whenever you say life sustaining, you think it's like major, you know, something major, you know, I don't think that's what, you know, that you need. But that's what life sustaining to them is recreational. And so we have a trip priority, which is first medical,
Mhm.
second nutritional, and third is employment, and then fourth is education, and then it's life sustaining but it should be called recreational.
Okay,
That's detailed in the transit, it's managed service for,
okay.
which you find on the website.
Okay.
I'll send it
But
to
you're saying that it's not in the handbook though, so,
Trying to,
or it's not in the handbook detailed enough for a
Correct.
passenger to understand.
Correct, that's what whenever, because I printed it all out, it was like 40 pages long, so is that your whole? I thought I had it with me, and I apologize, I didn't, I was looking, but what I printed out was 30 to 40 pages long.
Yeah.
And it was the Lake County Connection
That's it.
Rider Handbook.
Okay, right.
So maybe it wasn't specific to paratransit, but I couldn't find that. I tried to search on your website to gather as much information as I could, you know, to make sure that I was figuring out the program and utilizing it properly, you know, and to get to work on time. And that's why I moved up my, you know, pickup time and such.
Yeah, the writer's guide is written somewhat generically
Okay, yeah,
because it applies to both our ADA and our TV programs.
okay. So there isn't anything specifically that addresses my
There's-
PD program?
There, it's combined.
It needs to be more clear, is basically what we're saying.
Yeah,
Because the things we're asking for, I mean, I did try to find that information, and I have been unable to. But they could be on my part too, I may not be looking in the right place or able to access it.
I think we need to address, make it clear. We'll work on it.
Thank you.
Can I ask a procedural question? So with the life sustaining trips, so the bottom two bullet points, those were part of the same conversation, I believe. And at the September meeting was when we said, the 12 trips per month, to help with the 400 plus trips per month that there wasn't funding for. And it had an effective date of October 1st. What happens, when we say something like that? We said that there, like, I thought that was happening or was going to be happening. What's going on?
We had,
And I was trying in my head so desperately to figure out a way where it didn't sound persnickety, and it really is what happens. We said this, what happens, what the process for it to happen, so that I understand.
So we had a federal triennial review back in August, and we had a FDOT triennial review in November.
Yeah.
And we have a CTD biennial review coming up next month, May.
So it just didn't get addressed,
It just
right?
ain't
Okay,
addressed.
okay.
and we're meeting next month too.
Mm-hmm, yep.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because I mean,
So what do you guys need? Because we're all coming at you with, this is everything that's wrong, and it's all obviously your fault, but that was a joke. It's not your fault, you are people, you're humans. What does Lake County Transit need in order to have, the people need? What kind of money do you need? Like, what do you need? On a professional level?
Unprofessional, we are 90% grant funded.
Okay.
So just access to funding.
Yeah, and the county doesn't like to give us funding, so that's another problem.
Yeah, that's an internal issue.
Yeah.
We need to.
I'd love to talk to you about that.
So historically, Lake County doesn't spend general fund dollars on transportation. If they're starting now, they spend 2% of general funds on transportation, which includes transit. So there's a push at the board level to take that to 8%, which they did, I think, 30 years ago. But if they were at 0% for transportation for 25 years.
What's the current level right now? It's 0% right now, 2% right now.
2% of general fund. That's for all roadways, and transit's in there too.
So what percentage of 2% is going to
Not much.
the kind of changes that we're talking about?
I think
Quarter of a percent?
Whatever they need for a match.
They have gas tax revenue for the roads. They get gas tax revenue, but
Can we help advocate? What could I do?
So
I'm speaking in broad strokes. I think those might be conversations for outside of the meeting, perhaps.
So I trying to remember what in the AWAR or what happened in the rate model last year, but it seems to me it's like 800,000 that the county puts in a year.
Actually, it goes to these trips.
That's right.
I guess along those lines, I heard rumors in Tallahassee that TD might be moving, or there's a bill that would involve TD moving from where it's currently housed budgetarily over to APD.
There's
And what is any concerns there?
so no. Let me give you a big picture of what you've heard. So there was legislation last summer that changed requiring APD to provide the TD program with a minimum level of training. APD hasn't done that yet. So with that also was a requirement for anyone who has a disability that is what do they call it, an adverse event. So anyone who's on board a transit vehicle that has an adverse event gets reported to the TD Commission and to APD. So it's kind of a blurred line, but the commission isn't going to be directly under APD. They're just going to be influenced, if you will, by APD to have a minimum level of training. And that was a very broad. We're just still sorting through that. Our first, we're required to report quarterly. Our first report is after this quarter, so it would be by April 30th or January to March.
All right, so Mary Bennett rule, turns over to Kelsey for this one. It's all yours, Kelsey.
Thanks, Mike. So I know the Mary Bennett rule is something that we have been talking about for a while on this board, but for a little bit of a refresher, the current eligibility process or guidelines for the Mary Bennett rule is that a person is eligible if they receive dialysis or have another long-term medical condition that requires ongoing treatment and makes is $5,000 or less over the 200% poverty level. I also want to note that that is on top of the kind of baseline eligibility requirement that a rider doesn't have access to other types of transportation. So the proposed eligibility that staff is wanting the board to consider is that the first part is similar, just a little bit of changing to the language that a person would be eligible if they receive dialysis or have another chronic medical condition that requires regular transportation to medical appointments. And then B is unable to purchase transportation. So I'm going to talk about that more on the next slides, but essentially with unable to purchase transportation, that's getting at some of the stuff we talked about before. We're getting away from looking at using the federal poverty level and instead looking at income, somebody's income as well as their expenses. So next slide. All right. So I'm going to kind of break down how eligibility would be determined under these guidelines, starting with the first, and sorry, rather, before I start, all of this is information that is in the current eligibility application. So it's information that Lake County is already getting from applicants. So first, the first part of it, receives dialysis or has another chronic medical condition that requires regular transportation to medical appointments. This can be determined in the eligibility application because the applicant includes the reason for requesting transportation disadvantage service. So that one's pretty straightforward. B, unable to purchase transportation. This would be determined by looking at an applicant's monthly household income, which I'll note the application asks for people's gross income rather than net. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The monthly household expenses, which are also included in the application, and then the cost to purchase transportation. And so the cost to purchase transportation is something that would be estimated, and it would be estimated based off a few things, including the number of medical appointments that the applicant usually has in a month, which again, that is provided in the application. Whether the applicant is ambulatory or requires a wheelchair or scooter, and then the average private pay cost for an ambulatory trip and a wheelchair trip. And that average pay cost can be determined and has been by looking at the acceptable alternatives in Lake County. I know Amy called around to a lot of them and got the different prices for wheelchair and ambulatory trips. And so that would be, that's a locally estimated kind of average cost. I'm going to go through kind of an example of how this could work on the next slide, but first I want to pause to see if there's any questions or comments. Okay.
So this is one of the areas that we kind of wanted to, sorry for stepping on you here. We really wanted to structure so that we're not, what's the word I'm looking for?
So that we're,
It's not subjective.
Yeah, it's not.
It's subjective. It's objective, not subjective. I'll build it. So there's right now there's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
And we kind of look at things on a case by case basis, and we really want to get into this is who's eligible, this is what's eligible, cut and dry.
Specific guidelines.
Specific guidelines, yes. So that, this board is the board that determines those guidelines for the transportation disadvantage program. The ADA program is a federal mandate. So we have federal regulations that dictate that service. But this board would be determining the transportation disadvantage eligibility.
Thinking.
Sorry, Kelsey.
Sorry.
No, thank you. So I'll go through the example, and I think the thing to keep in mind is at the end of this example, the request from you all is going to be ultimately what is that cutoff for, what is considered able or unable to purchase transportation. What is affordable? But for purposes of this example, let's say that an applicant has a monthly household income of $16,000. Again, in the eligibility application, they report the gross income. So that's before any taxes are taken out. Depending on what type of income they receive and what documentation they provide, it's possible to kind of determine their net income, but not necessarily across the board, again, because that's dependent, if they give pay stubs or what kind of income they're receiving. Then for this example, we'll say that the monthly household expenses are $10,000. The number of medical appointments per month estimated at 12. And then in terms of ambulatory or in a wheelchair or scooter, for this example, we'll say the applicant is in a wheelchair. And then again, the average private pay cost for your wheelchair trips is about $125 to $150 per one-way trip, and that's from talking to different private providers in Lake County. And so what we do here is we say, okay, there's 12 appointments, 2 trips per appointment since they're one way. And then if we're multiplying that times the estimated cost, we're using 150 at the high end, then that comes out to be $3,600 per month spent on transportation for this example. So if you take the income of $16,000 and you subtract the monthly household expenses of $10,000 and the $3,600 spent on transportation, then this applicant would have $2,400 left over for their household after paying all household and transportation expenses. So next slide, please. So again, the question then for this board is, what should the cutoff be to determine whether or not someone can afford to pay for transportation? Again, with this, using this as an example, the applicant has $2,400 a month left over after paying their household expenses and purchasing transportation. Another way to look at it, the applicant is spending 85% of their monthly income on household expenses and transportation. The question for this example, we can talk about it in terms of this example or just in general, is this affordable for this person then to be purchasing transportation? If not, what should that cutoff be?
Also, I think this is actually per year, not per month.
I was gonna say.
So I have a $16,000 a month income. Oh.
Goodness, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so then taking into account that it's per year, we go back a slide?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't. Okay. So we're saying they have $200 left over per month
Yes.
after all that. On the income and expenses, it says household. Is there a clear definition of what household means? Because what about multi-generational households? But we're not pitching in. Like maybe they pay a portion of the rent or the mortgage, but otherwise they are their own households that happen to live under one roof. Is that included in the definition of household?
Household is anybody that's living in the house. If they, like you're talking about, if somebody's renting a room or whatever in that household, then they need a letter from the landlord stating that they're just renting a room. So that way we don't need to have their income to be included whenever they're submitting the income, household income for the application.
But just that people live together doesn't mean they share income and expenses.
Correct.
Correct. But that's the reason why we need a letter from them stating that they're just renting a room. They're not, all of this not.
Their income and expenses are separated.
Separate. Yeah.
Okay, because that was different than renting a room.
Yeah, nowadays, people are having their marriage for 20 years, getting divorced. They are coming and getting a new relationship, and they've been in this relationship for 10 years, but we don't have, my boyfriend and I do not have shared checking accounts. I've got my stuff, he's got his stuff. We're not all combining that like I did back when I was in my 20s. So it's hard with putting in his income. He doesn't give me money, he does not pay for my things, but we are a household. So that is tough with today's way we live now.
So that goes back to standardizing what eligibility is.
And eligibility for married man rule or eligibility period?
Eligibility period. But also for married men.
Yeah.
Because like, I know we're getting into I need to know what the definition of is, but, household, the times they are a-changing, you know, I think we need to have a clear definition of what that is for the purpose of standardizing it. And, you know, I know you guys get into, well, how do you prove that? And
Yeah, it's touchy.
there, with the entirety of the application, there are so many opportunities for me to be dishonest with you. There really is.
Yeah.
But
And that's
I see it more often than not in my line of work, that the household that we used to think that, what that used to mean, doesn't mean the same thing as what we're talking about here. Like, there are people who happen to live under the same roof, but they don't have the same shared experiences, let alone the same shared bills. Like, I'm not going to so-and-so who lives in my house for help with the water bill, you know? Those are my expenses, those are my income. I don't know. And I understand what you mean about renting a room, but that's also not what it is. I think we need to work on that.
we love that structure.
I think you need to revisit this entire example. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense with, even if it's 16 and 10 a month, because you're automatically upside down before you even pay for a trip. So, because you only have $500 left a month, but you got $3,600 in expense trips, so you're $3,100 upside down. So somewhere.
So I'd say they're eligible then. We're going that, yeah.
I mean, automatic, but I think if you're gonna use this somewhere, it needs to be revised, because it just doesn't make any sense.
Currently, we utilize the 200% poverty level as a guide.
Yeah.
This morning, staff, Jill and Bill and I, we were talking about the poverty level and decreasing it to 250% or 300%. For one person family at 250 is 39,125. And for one person, it's 46,950 for 300%. So we're talking about, instead of having the Mary Bennett rule, doing away with the Mary Bennett rule and increasing the poverty level standard that we utilize.
That way it is objective, not
Yes.
subjective.
Yes.
Does that change?
And that way, if somebody makes over these, yes, if they make over the 300%, if that's what y'all will choose to do, then that's cut and dry. If they're over that, then they don't receive it, transportation disadvantage.
What was the number for?
For one individual, if we're at 300%, is 46,950. At 250%, it's 39,125.
Leisha had brought up a few times using SMI versus poverty level. We looked at that at all?
We have,
That's state median income.
yeah, it's.
You said that's what they use for determining eligibility based on finances and, really.
We did look at that, I don't remember what There was something goofy about it.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah. So, yeah, I wanted to clarify, um, part of the reason we looked at this potential guidelines is that it uses information that Lake County already collects. But for this particular example, it is intended to be monthly, and the reason that I chose, these numbers is because it is looking at somebody who has a much higher income uh, than somebody who would typically, be approved under the regular guidelines. But they also have expenses, high expenses, as well as high transportation expenses. Um, but again, the question is, if they have that much left over, if they're paying 85% on expenses, is that considered affordable? Are they able to, um, you know, would we say that they are able to afford transportation?
So wheelchair transportation is really expensive. Private pay is up to $150 within the county. We're currently paying $54 per wheelchair trip. And right at 34 for inventory. So I don't know where I was going with that, but just ours, that's private pay rates. Our service costs not that much, not as much as private pay, but you get what you pay for too.
Mhm. Yeah. A few other things I wanted to note was we took a look at some of kind of the average numbers for what's spent on transportation. And in 2023, the average percent of before tax income spent on transportation was 12.9%. So for example, in this just example, this person would be spending 22.5% of their income on transportation. Um, Another thing to consider is, there's, I think, typically a recommendation is that people spend no more than 45% of their budget on housing and transportation combined. And so, yeah, I think those are just some things to consider. If we did want to use income and expenses and transportation cost, but I'm also hearing that maybe the board doesn't want to use this approach and would want to use a different approach.
We would really like to do away with Mary Bennett rule and increase the percentage. We think that's, like I said, subjective. It's subjective, not subjective. I always have to process that. That way, it's cut and dry. You're eligible or not.
I have a question. What about the people that that have the higher incomes, instead of charging them the $2 flat rate, increasing their fare, would that solve some of the issues?
That would help, but again, how do you scale that?
Are you asking me?
Anybody.
We have to have clear criteria regardless, but I would like for there to be exploration of a sliding scale or private pay opportunity versus turning people away because on paper they appear to make too much money, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but I got debt.
Yeah.
I mean, so how much I actually make is not how much I actually have.
Yep.
That's my shoe, I think. And I think that's I think that's why I like looking at the income versus expenses. It's awfully nosy, and brings up the conversation of what does household mean? But if we just look at the poverty level, that doesn't actually give a clear picture of whether or not someone is disadvantaged based financially.
My concern is, I depend on paratransit to make money, get back and forth to work. And on paper, it looks like I make a lot of money, but my household and my expenses make it so that I live from paycheck to paycheck. So I would be very concerned on some of this stuff.
That's why we want clear guidelines.
So ADA is capped at twice the fixed route fare, but that doesn't apply to TD?
Correct.
So there is opportunity there as far as we understand. Not saying we know what we're doing. I'm just saying there is opportunity there.
Absolutely.
Like legally, we're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm with you on the objective part. Like we need to figure out a way for it to be objective, and getting rid of Mary Bennett rule, that makes a lot of sense. Because that's more calculations and kind of subjective too, because that's average private pay cost for, what if someone needs a trip from Kagan's up to Lady Lake because that is the only place they can receive those services. We're talking a lot more than $150 for that trip. So you're proposing, tell me again what you're proposing. Increasing the poverty from it, right now we're at 200%, you're saying 250 to 300%.
Is that sustainable with your current budget grants that you get? If we do raise that, is that allowing way too many more people for you guys to handle currently? Are we gonna create?
See,
Do we have any idea? We don't know.
That's the double-edged sword is, more people would be eligible, and we would have more trip requests. So we would have to go to that prioritization, where we strictly enforce, or then we only do medical and nutritional.
And no employment?
And no employment.
That, I know the root.
It happened, it happened once.
In 2012, we had.
That was,
We had to stop all trips except for medical and nutritional.
What caused that problem? Just so we don't put ourselves in that
We went
situation
into a
again.
recession in
Okay.
2012, or 2010 to 2013, 14. Then we were in a recession. So in 2012, the whole county, the employees of the county had to go furlough. We took off, was it one day every pay period, or one day every month, so that we could keep jobs, and they had to cut, because the general funds, they weren't there.
so we're currently
The
not there.
taxes weren't there,
Okay.
so we
Currently
had to
not
stop.
there. Might,
So we have to make sure anything changes that we made is like, change in the poverty level, doesn't put us back in that same situation again. It was my concern.
So employment trips, more valuable than.
Right now, the tier rate is, for unemployment trips are number 3. So,
I mean, you could get into semantics with it, because a doctor's visit where you're discussing, it was absolutely nonsense, you could have gotten the results of the phone at that kind of medical appointment, versus this is the first time someone's gotten out in 2 months and they're going to see Abe Lincoln at the Leesburg Library. That one could be more important than someone else's medical. You can get really semantic about it. So how, you have a hard job. You have a hard job.
It's balancing it.
See, my point is instead of eliminating anything, what do we need, like you were saying earlier, what kind of more grants, more money? Christy said about a sliding scale of allowing us to, we need the service. We need the service. Whether it's for me to go to a nail parlor so that somebody can cut my toenails, because I cannot see to take care of my toenails, you know what I'm saying? That it's kind of gross. I can't do that, that's not a luxury thing for me. Doctor's offices won't do it. If it's a podiatrist, they don't get paid to do that stuff. So how do we keep our services and give you, what do you need, the money? The
And
money?
for their purposes, like when you call scheduling is just gonna see, oh, you wanna go to the beauty parlor.
Yes.
Like, aren't you
Yes.
fancy?
Yes, yes.
It's a balancing act, and you've got to balance the revenues with the expenses and break even.
And you said the no-shows aren't, or like cancellations, I know sometimes you'll put them in a like cancellation as far, instead of a no-show or something. I know there's
Different levels
Yeah.
there. Generally, if it's cancellation less than 2 hours, it's considered a late cancellation, which counts towards the no-show policy, but we're not enforcing the no-show policies.
But you said that alone isn't going to create any more funds. We're not losing enough funds from not enforcing the no-show.
Correct.
That would be, okay.
Right.
Lowe's was that way on our theft. We didn't have a, loss prevention manager until we lost over 10% of whatever, so I get that. I get
Then you
that.
need to have somebody in there watching that.
Um,
What kind of research would have to be done for us to know? What kind of research, how would it be done, what would need to happen for you guys to know a sliding scale or a private pay, thresholds there? Like if we took income off of the application whatsoever, it wasn't income and one of these things, for example, we're gonna put it out there, let's show it. Then what would a sliding scale look like? Or each trip is now $5, so that there's not, you can't go to the library you want to go to. How do you do that kind of research?
Each county in the state has slightly different eligibility criteria.
Yeah.
And structure, the TD structure is different everywhere. In Orlando, up to 5 miles is $250, 5 to 10 miles is $350, and anything over 10 miles is $450 for a fare.
Based on distance, interesting.
Yeah.
I like that.
In Tallahassee, it's a flat $2 a trip.
What about an area that's like Lake County? It's neither of those, it's like us. What do you use as an equivalent there? What's another county that's fun?
So Volusia is $2 a trip.
Distance based, interesting.
And that, this distance base that I just mentioned, it was specific to the TD program. ADAs, of course, we can charge no more than twice the same trip on fixed route.
See, to me, I would much prefer you guys figuring out those type of things than to be denying or dropping
Yeah.
anybody from service.
Yeah.
Because we are willing, that's a far jump, anything, $5, that's a far jump to 35 to 45 is what Uber would charge from my home to my workplace one way. That's
65.
not doable. But I'd be more than willing to pay for my rides.
And that's what it's costing us, is that $50
$35,
for
Mhm.
$35 to $50. So,
But if you are getting more revenue from us, is that actually just drops in the bucket compared to
It
what it's
really
actually
is.
costing?
It really is. At $30 for an ambulatory trip, I'm sorry, my brain is out there. We require, for the TD grant, we require a 10% local match. So we apply that $2 fare towards that 10% match.
Oh, the fares are good for the match.
Does that cover the match?
No.
Well, how much would it be to cover the match? Just walking.
30 something or
Yeah, a $30 trip would be $3. $50 wheelchair trip would be $5.
So speaking in terms of being objective, distance-based is pretty objective, right?
How long has it been $2, the fare?
Oh goodness, it's been probably since 2008.
As long as it's
2006, 2008.
I don't mean that if I would know ahead of time, like budget it, I'd much rather pay the extra money than be denied a ride.
I agree.
Or have my client be denied a ride.
Jamie, you serve on a couple of different LCDs. Within District 5, is there comparable programs Lake County? Put you on the spot there.
I will have to think about that. I would say if anything, Carlos would be the one, because I think he would probably have the more similar to Lake County than I would, because I cover Orlando's area and he does go hard in Marion and Village.
So you got it easy.
The board stated, what you all said here, we're willing to pay more, or clients at least, are willing to pay more in lieu of denying trips. And it's over and above our capabilities right here to make that decision without more data.
Yeah.
And we could do some proof, a study, a revenue study for TV program.
Like, am I allowed to talk with them outside of the board about this stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I was really concerned about,
I'll give
not.
you a cell phone number.
Okay. Because this is something that if this isn't the form that we have to do it in, I just know that there are some things that we're not allowed to discuss.
With
That we're very-
other board members.
Okay, so he's not a board member.
I'm staff
Okay.
on our board member.
Okay, I didn't know that difference, I didn't understand that difference, okay.
Jamie will remember, Emilio, Scott, Chantel, you guys.
Okay,
So commissioning and study though sounds expensive and time consuming. Yeah. Do you have time for that? No, like, not like you, do we have time budgetarily to prolong decisions?
We're at our monthly allocation now. So, I mean, we're at that breaking point. So in the near future, we need to make a decision.
Well, at the start, you already have approval to limit those life-sustaining trips. You have that already. So you could, maybe that might help a little bit, figure it out.
Yeah.
You're like, no. Okay.
It's,
Just makes us feel good.
I hate to say that, but yeah.
That's it for you.
Something that you could help with also, not this fiscal year, but starting July 1. So we could fund that kind of study.
Doing away with the Mary Bennett rule wouldn't help you either. That would make it worse for you right now.
It would, if we kept it at 200%, it would make it better for us. I mean, there's not a lot of people that qualify under Mary Bennett that wouldn't normally qualify. So I wouldn't expect it would have that big of an impact.
We can't take any action of anybody to call for a vote, so we're just talking. Right?
So our next item on the discussion is we're updating our transportation disadvantage service plan. And this rule is contained within there. And so it comes back to you in June, and then update your changes. So we could take guidance in this through today and then bring it back in June.
That's what you're gonna have. However, the process would have to work. I would recommend exploring the distance-based pay sliders. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think the private pay is an important option, so.
Private pay would be important.
Michael, if I can, one other thing I was gonna, well, two things. One thing I was gonna ask about is I'm not sure how what the process is like to add subcommittees, but if there would be any interest to create a subcommittee to discuss this further, that could be a potential option. The other thing I wanted to note is a few items down in the agenda. We were going to talk about the rescheduled date for the public hearing. And so that, depending on when we decide to schedule that, could be another opportunity to discuss this further as well.
Well, and could the surveys involve exploratory questions on fare increases in hopes to reduce?
We can do that separately. The surveys are for the TDC evaluation. But we could have some alternate questions on there.
Does the chair have to appoint subcommittees?
So the board can convene subcommittees as needed. So if it's desired to form a eligibility or funding subcommittee, it's up to the board.
I'd be very interested in that. However, I would want to make sure that not just visually impaired people we're actually talking to. I need to make sure that we could bring in other people so that we're meeting their needs as well.
How does that work?
So that's the recommendation we can bring back for approval in June.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would very much like a subcommittee, just to help us define things.
Absolutely. We want that for you. We want it. We do.
And subcommittee can meet, as needed. That'd be cool.
That would be awesome. I'd be very interested if everybody was willing.
All right, so
Good job, Kelsey.
draft line, bring it.
So it sounds like we still have some things to figure out regarding the Mary Bennett rule, but also more broadly about ensuring that Lake County can fund the trips and minimize the impact of, potentially cutting any trips. So we will include on the next agenda an action item to create a subcommittee. That, is there anything else before I guess we move on to the next item?
Sorry, one thing on the, for follow-up.
Mhm.
If we're still under the follow-up, we're still under B.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I really didn't intend for it to turn into a 3-hour one, guys, I promise. I saw in my notes when I was looking up the 12 trips, and making the complaint form, it's currently a PDF, turning that instead into an online form that is accessible, perhaps like Google Forms.
Yes.
It's on the list.
It's on the list.
I was just making sure it's on the list.
It's definitely on the list. We were actually, we created a page on our website that has all of the required reporting. Has like a GTFS, it has a link to the TDSB. It has our annual budget, just the stuff that the state requires us to post. We have it all on one website or one web page together. But I guess where I was going with that is we're in the process of updating that whole thing.
Or not.
Okay, item C, the fiscal year 2025 Transportation Disadvantage Service Plan Annual Update. This is a Kelsey item also. So yours, Kelsey.
All right, so I'll try and take us pretty quickly through the remaining items. But for the TDSP annual update, just as a reminder, the TDSP is, the service, essentially the service plan that gets updated, or it gets redone every 5 years, and every year we do an annual update. And so for the annual updates, not everything gets updated. There are certain things that are required to be updated, and then there are some things that get updated just kind of as needed if things change. So in terms of the requirements, within the development plan, the things that are required to be updated every year are the needs assessment, the goals, objectives, and strategies, and the implementation plan. Within the service plan, the only thing that's required to be updated every year is the cost/revenue allocation and rate structure justification. And then within the quality assurance section, the only thing that is required to be updated every year is is to include the previous TDSP review letter. And this is only something that the CGC would get back if there were any deficiencies noted in the TDSP, which there were not, so this won't apply. And if you can go to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about some of those other requirements. Okay, so this table is showing, it shows the page number, the section in the TDSP, and then the update that's going to be made. And so this is essentially a log of all the updates, or at least the key updates that will be made based on the requirements, as well as those as needed updates. So first, it would be on, and this is referring to the most recently updated TDSP, so the one that got updated and approved last June. It should be on the website, but I'll confirm with Michael to make sure that afterwards that the most up-to-date one is on the website for people to look at. Okay, perfect. So on page 7, section 1, local coordinating board membership short certification. Here, the membership is just updated to reflect the current membership. On page 48, 3.34 needs assessment. So this is looking at what are the current capital and service needs, and the idea is to include them here to support future grant applications. So some of those things that would be included in this update are, vehicle replacement, as well as updating the scheduling software. On page 51, as well as page 99, are the goals, objectives, strategies, and implementation plan. This is something that we go through every year, and we just look at, what were the actions that are included there and what was actually accomplished within fiscal year 24. So that'll be updated as well. On pages 49 to 50, section 3.35, barriers to coordination. This is just talking about the ISD grant, and so we'll include just an update on that grant here, which I'm sure if people have questions, Amy and Bill could talk more about, but essentially they'll be, I believe, are planning to apply again this year for that grant.
And ISD is what, Kelsey?
It is, the innovative, okay, thank you, Bill, Innovative Service Development Grant. And that's from the CTD, and the idea is to plan to fund innovative projects within the CTD program. 53, page 53 to 54, that's section 4.1.2.1, eligibility. So I had included here a possible Mary Bennett rule update. It sounds like we may not have the update ready for June, but if there are any updates, if we come up with any updates by then in terms of eligibility, that's where we would include them. And I also just want to know, even if we don't have an update ready to be approved by June, we can always make amendments to the TDSP later in the year. Page 56, 4.13, transportation operators and coordination contractors. Here, we'll just be removing United Way as a coordination contractor to make sure that list is up to date. Page 58 as well as 107 is section 4.16, the vehicle inventory. And so that again will just be updated to reflect the current status. There were 4 fixed route vehicles that have been removed, and Lake County received 4 new paratransit buses. So we will update that. Page 58 and 110, the System Safety Program Plan certification. This is something that is updated annually as part of, the PTASP, which is, oh gosh, Bill, you may have to help me with that one again, but it's essentially an annual safety plan. And so we just include the updated annual certification. Then page 75, 4.2, the cost/revenue allocation and rate structure justification. This is this essentially Excel spreadsheet that Lake County completes every year. It gets sent to the CTD for approval, and that gets included in here as well. And then lastly, page 78, 5.2, summary of CTC evaluation results. And so this, once we complete the CTC evaluation, we type up a 1-page summary about the findings, and that will get included in the annual update as well. And those are all the kind of the key updates. There might be little things here and there, but those are kind of the main updates that you'll see in June in the TDSP annual update.
Any questions? We'll move on to item D. This is Kelsey again.
Right. So item D is fiscal year 2025 community transportation coordinator evaluation. So this is an annual review of the CTC's operations and performance. It is dictated by the CTC evaluation workbook, which comes from the CTD. It includes general questions, questions about compliance with the Florida statutes and administrative code, commission standards, local standards, and the Americans with Disabilities or ADA. American with Disabilities Act or ADA. And then it also includes rider surveys as well as surveys of contractors and the on-site observation. And so if you go to the next slide, it'll show just kind of the timeline and the process. So this is just showing a timeline from January to June. It shows that in February is when we requested the data from the CTC for the evaluation. March is when we'll be doing the surveys and observational rides, which I'll talk about briefly on the next slide. Then in sometime between April and May, that's when the subcommittee will meet to go review the evaluation and talk about any, findings there. And then at our June meeting on June 2nd, that's when the subcommittee will present the evaluation to the TDCB. So next slide. This is just a reminder about who's on the subcommittee. It's Leslie Campione, the Lake County TDCB Chair, Leisha Buchbinder, the Children at Risk, and Jamie Ledgerwood with FDOT. And next slide is our last slide for this item. So really, the ask here is that we are requesting volunteers, like we do every year, to assist with the observational rides, the onboard surveys, and phone surveys. It says to email me, but I will follow up after the meeting and send out an email to all the board members to see who's interested. So if you are interested in volunteering or just want to hear more, you can reply to that email, and I will respond with instructions and help to coordinate a time and a date with the operator if you're doing the observational rides or onboard surveys. The other thing related to the surveys that we'd like help with is just distributing the survey out to your networks to try and reach more people. We will have a link to the online survey. I had hoped to have it ready today, but Chantel kindly had some staff at New Vision test the survey for us, and we're still working out a few kinks to make sure that is accessible. So hoping to get that finalized this week, and as soon as I do, I will send out the survey with a flyer and some draft language that you all can use or tweak to include in an email or on social media.
Kelsey, can we add any questions to it?
Sorry, Michael, was that did we or can we add any questions?
Yeah, can we?
Yeah, we can. Did you have a specific question you wanted to add?
Well, the board was talking about some funding questions.
So you thought that would be better if it was separate?
It might be, but it's asking if it's possible. But it'd be a part of the revenue forecast study, questions related to that.
Just let them know that we're considering going to a distant-based.
You know, would you need to pay $4 for a ride?
Mhm. Something in general, throwing it, getting started, that's an appropriate place. The more preparation we have, the better.
I know I was a little theory out there, but I'm gonna say, I don't think we should, because I think that would, affect how they may respond to the survey.
Right.
Because, oh, I suddenly hate these people because they're gonna charge me more money. What? It's fair.
And you probably say why you want to charge more.
Context is important.
Yeah, because if you say, do you want me to charge, no, I don't want you to charge. Who's gonna say yes? Unless you know.
Or you could put an exploratory question on there saying, like you said, this is why we're doing it. If, would you be knowing these facts, would you be willing to pay more for a ride?
Yeah.
Because you said these are survey results that you have to send to people.
Oh.
In like Tallahassee for people. Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, we don't want to show them.
We want everybody to have a fair report card.
Yeah. So I think though, to that point, Michael, my suggestion would be that we focus the annual public hearing, which is our next item, maybe on this question. So if you all are okay, to move on to the next item, I can talk about it there, but any questions about the CTC evaluation? Okay. So the fiscal year 2025 annual public hearing, we had initially planned to do it at today's meeting prior to the regular quarterly meeting, but wanted to reschedule to allow time for more outreach so we could have more public involvement. And so the question that I wanted to pose to you all is what date we should do, if we should look at doing it just before the TDCB meeting on June 2nd, 2025, like we normally do, or if we want to choose a completely separate date sometime in late April or early May. And so some things to consider is if we did it before the TDCB meeting on June 2nd, we'll be presenting the final draft of the TDSP and the CTC evaluation later in that meeting. So that could be a good opportunity for the public to stay and listen to those results. And then if we did it earlier, we could present potentially an earlier draft of the TDSP or get more feedback to include in the actual TDSP. And then the other thing I wanted to note was, like I just mentioned, based off this conversation we just had, it seems like we typically just leave it open for people to leave whatever comments they want, which we could still, have that opportunity. But this could be an opportunity to ask some more targeted questions at the public hearing of, how would you feel? Would you be open to paying more? How would this impact you? Taking some of the questions that we discussed today and kind of having that discussion with the public and getting their feedback at the public hearing.
So just as a staff response, Public hearing is an action item, it requires a quorum, of course, for the record, then we have it in a regular meeting schedule, so we can ensure a quorum. But if we want more, we could do a second date. We've got it. Would not be an action item. Got the information to bring to the board.
So if there were feedback, substantial feedback that came from the public hearing that we had right before we're trying to approve the document, we have to approve the document, right? Like it's, we're not leaving it until it's approved, sort of thing, because you have to submit it. If we do get that substantial feedback potentially at the very next meeting, we could do an amendment. Like, is that how that would work? Okay. Because that would be why, for quorum purposes, why it seems like it would be just fine for it to be June.
And that's it. We could have 2 days if you want, but the one at June 2nd would be the quorum for the action.
I'm fine with June.
Okay.
That's just me though, right?
Hearing no objection, we'll move forward. Membership update and any member from this board. Upcoming conferences, meetings, and events. Florida Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged quarterly business meeting, March 10th, 2025 in Tallahassee. These are virtual meetings, so make sure the link slips out to the board. There's also one on June 2nd, 2025 in Tallahassee. And they're both virtual meetings.
You're gonna have a disadvantage in a second.
Yeah. So staff's required to go to one of a year. Probably might skip that one. So, Jamie,
I have no updates, but I'm willing to listen to any questions, concerns, comments.
we go to Lake County, Amy. You can have your slides. Oh, shoot. Hold on, I have one more.
So, yeah, for Lake County, I didn't include the transit report slides in the presentation. I think we had talked about not including them in the presentation to save time during the meetings, but they are included in the agenda backup. So if people have questions, they can still be discussed during this time.
If anybody has any questions about the reports, and we go over them with them.
They're hard to present with. They're all graphs and graphics. Let me update Rolo's name next time. The Indio core reports in your packet, it's a form I have to submit to the Commission for Transportation Disadvantaged Urban Corridor. It's not very user friendly. The font size is about 8. Change it. But there's a flyer at the check-in counter. We're doing our new 2050 long-range transportation plan. We'll adopt this in December. It's the vision for Lake County and Suffolk County for the next 20 years. Identify what projects we're going to fund, what areas we're going to highlight, for improvement in our areas. And so we really like your be part of the process. And doing mostly online, virtual, often surveys and videos on the website. So we'll probably talk about it every NPO board meeting from now on. So I'll email out the slide with the QR codes. There's also a webpage on the website that has all of our what we've done so far. Last time we did this, last time we adopted in 2020, And this board, we became consultants and presented to the board for years. So we'll do that again. And that's all I have. Um,
Anything from Ola?
That's what we need. So, board member comments? Any other comments from the board?
Thank you for listening to me so much this meeting, that's all.
That's why we're here.
Thank you.
We made a lot of progress doing this.
Rock and a hard place, you guys.
Next meeting is June 2nd, 2025, right here. 10 o'clock for a public hearing and then following the moving board. Hearing nothing else, we're adjourned. 2 hours and 26.
Sorry, guys, seriously.
No, it's.
Second longest.
Where are those handouts?